Today, we are honored to welcome Russell von Brocklen to the show today. I'm very excited about the show. He has a lot of information to talk about in the form of dyslexia and all things cognition. He has an amazing story. And the reason why I have him on the show today is because many people are struggling with this. And he has many solutions. He has a great heart and really wants to be of service. So I'm really excited to have him on the show today. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm very curious the story that kind of got you into this place. Like many people, I find they have a story that they've overcome to be of service, and I'm very curious to see what that is for you.
Well, for me, it all started back when I applied in the late 90s to go to the New York State Assembly internship. That's where you work as a staff member full time with an academic portion. And I just wanted to know how our government worked. So I go in there with a first grade reading and writing level, and they essentially tell me this isn't going to work. So they put me in the Majority Leader's Program and Counsel's office. That's the office essentially ran the day-to-day operations of the assembly. They had three administrative assistants, and it worked out fantastic. But then I had to present my research, which is normally done in a big academic paper, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Well, for me, I had a first grade writing level, so it was a very standard accommodation for me to give a very long and detailed presentation with a lot of hard questions. And at the end, they recommended an A minus or a 3.67 on a 4.0 scale. Goes back to the State University of New York Center at Buffalo's Political Science Department. They looked at what I did and they said, "We don't like these accommodations. Here's your 15 credits of F." Never happened before in the history of the program. It's 26, 27 years ago, and it's still there. It destroyed my GPA. And I said, enough. I'm done with this nonsense. So after college, I decided I wanted to solve reading and writing. And what was the most impossible place to do this? Law school. So I decided to audit contracts and property with a first grade reading and writing level. All right. People said I was doomed to to failure. They were wrong. I went to see Professor Warner, who was a dyslexic. He's dyslexic, taught for decades. I go into his contracts class. It's my second day, and he calls on me. And if people want to know what it's like to be called on in law school, they use the Socratic method. There's a movie about it called The Paper Chase, and essentially they keep asking you questions if you don't know the answer to embarrass you in front of your entire class, to compel you to learn to argue any point at any time from any way as quickly as possible. That didn't happen to me. Like other dyslexics, when you go into grad school, we own the place from day one. This is where I found that out. Everything slowed down, organized. I knew where he was going multiple times ahead of me. Professor Warner knew where I was going. We politely but viciously argued back and forth like crazy, very hard, for 15 minutes. And at the end, he said, "Russell, in the interest of time, I have to move on to the next case. You couldn't be any more correct." My classmates looked at me in kind of awe and trepidation. Those who graduated that I kept in contact with said they couldn't even do half of what they did after law school that I did in the second day. Then we go on to property, and they start giving us these quizzes. I have no accommodations on purpose. So as you're reading through, everybody knows everything, but you're supposed to spend 3 to 5 minutes to try to figure out how they're trying to fool you. I didn't spend 3 to 5 seconds. I was done in less than 2 seconds. And I would almost every time I had the right answer. And it's like 20 minutes into class and I'm done and I have a perfect score. And nobody else finishes first few times. I'm like, this is easy.
Wow.
It took me, but the writing got me. Took me another couple of years. So then I said, okay, I did real well in grad school. Other dyslexics do real well in graduate school. So how do we solve this? I said, all right, what we're going to do is just bring the writing skills of the kids who were like me in school. So I focused my old school district, the Averill Park Central School District, just east of Albany, New York. I picked the ideal, the most highly intelligent, the most motivated, with excellent family support, college bound. The school district picked them. The New York State Senate funded this after going through so many steps. Their best teacher, Susan Ford, taught it, one class period a day for the school year, took their reading and took their writing from seventh, eighth grade level to the average range of entering graduate school students. using the graduate records exam analytical writing assessment. Their spelling and grammar went from atrocious to clean at the graduate level. And Susan Ford said she spent almost no time teaching it, self-corrected. So then we followed them through college. They all graduated, no accommodations, grade point averages of 2.5 to 3.6, cost New York State less than $900 per child. The best dyslexic college at the time was Landmark College. We were 3x as effective as they were for less than 1/10 of the cost. I'm sorry, less than 1/100th of the cost. And
Wow.
when well, I thought I was done. I thought I did something amazing. I was wrong. When I presented it, the teacher said, what you need to do is what about the normal kids who are younger? I said, okay, this is obviously not for them, and no, we can't extend it. We have to totally change everything. And the professor said, oh, 70th percentile of entering grad students for your best students. We don't care. We want the craft of research, which was the book that came out from the University of Chicago in 1995 because PhD students didn't know how to write their dissertations. So that's context problem solution. So I dropped context to 9-year-olds in fourth grade, problems for middle school kids, and then solution for high school kids. So what do I mean by solution? If you can't come up with something original to say, don't write the paper. So created a process that imagine you have 20 kids writing on Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, and the teacher learns something substantively new for each of those 20 papers. That's what we were able to
That's
accomplish. Yes.
incredible.
So, but getting back to the model, how is this possible? What everybody needs to understand for your audience, if you're talking about something different than a Orton Gillingham multi-sensory structured language approach, which came out, it's been out since 1920s. Anything besides that, because this is what the wealthy use. If you don't know where the science is, there's so much fraud in my field. It's horrible. This is where my science comes from. This is a book called Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz from Yale, and it's brain scans. Fear is dyslexia.
Wow.
See how the back part of your brain has all this neural activity,
Yeah.
but the back part of my brain has next to zero.
Yeah, for sure.
But the front part of my brain's 2.5 times overactive.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, I decided to use the front part of the brain. That deals with two areas according to Yale. Articulation followed by word analysis. Now remember the first test I did, GRE, graduate record exam, analytical articulation. About the same thing. We did very little word analysis. But to bring this to everybody, I had to switch this over to word analysis followed by articulation, and it proved to be so much more effective. All right. But then we ran into the problem. The dyslexic students wouldn't do the work. So
Mm.
we had to figure out how do we do that? Well, dyslexic professors excelled in grad school, where it's very specialized. So I came up with the idea of your speciality, your area of extreme interest and ability. So I want you to imagine this. It's a Saturday morning. This is for you. Saturday morning, you can do whatever you want all day. You have nothing planned. What do you do? What's your speciality? What's your area of extreme interest and ability?
Yeah. For me, I'm doing a podcast on Saturday morning by myself, doing some research, doing some writing. Just kind of
Oh,
that's kind of
name
my
one thing
one
that
thing. I'll
you're
say
really good
podcast.
podcasting. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we got a book for you on a well-written audio book and printed book on how to be a better podcaster, and it's really authoritative, the best on the market, would that keep you interested?
100%.
Okay. So for dyslexics, this is my most popular book. All 1,000 pages. Yes, it's Disney's
Big.
biography. All right. Why? Have you ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
In the distant past, yes,
Did you feel like it was a magical place at all?
I did.
Okay. The Disney magic is based on two universal themes. You walk into the Magic Kingdom or Disneyland, it's that first place is Main Street, USA. That is Marceline, Missouri, where Disney was between 5 and 10, and he tried to spend the rest of his life to recreate that. Those two universal themes what I transform into the kid's speciality. The first one's real easy to find, but the second one, I've never had a parent find it. It's by far the most important. To give you an example, I had a 12-year-old. She started this book, this 1,000-page book for 11th graders when she was 10. She was so motivated to learn the Disney magic. And then the second universal theme, I asked her mom, who had a master's degree. And she said, I can't find it. I said, do you want me to have your daughter tell you? She's like, go ahead. And her daughter goes, Mom, it's right here. And the mom was shocked. She's like, I looked at it so many times. I said, your 12-year-old daughter, who's dyslexic, can now comprehend better than you can. Have I done my job?
Yeah, for sure.
But because the child wanted to find what's the Disney magic, she was willing to go through this monster.
Yeah,
Okay. And
incredible.
it took her years. All right. But then she was way ahead of her reading. Now, that is, we have to focus on the speciality. The next thing that I've learned, and I got this when I interviewed top dyslexic professors, I want you to imagine were, when I'm talking to them, they said a lot of them were STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. Okay. And they would say, well, when we were in college, we took a lot of art history, philosophy. I said, oh, good for you. Some of them said, but we didn't like the courses. I'm like, why are you taking them? And they said, because the teacher taught not from the general to the specific, but from the specific to the general.
Hmm.
So here's a question to see if you're ADD, ADHD, or mildly dyslexic. Are you ready?
Yeah.
In your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization?
Honestly, no. I mean, of course, sometimes depending on the state, but most of the time, no.
Yeah, you're not dyslexic, ADD, or ADHD, but for a dyslexic or ADD kid, they're going to say yes. So then I tell them what the solution is we have to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Again,
Hmm.
forcing the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Because if you ask them the question, like, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have on the American civil rights movement in the 1960s? Ask that to a dyslexic, it's grabbing fog. It's like, we can't get anything a hold of it. But if we asked specific to the general, what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous I Have a Dream speech? We have a starting point. We can look it up. Logical questions will follow, and then we just go out from there.
That
Okay?
makes sense. Yeah.
So the model, and then we do word analysis followed by articulation. And just so you know how powerful this is, have you ever met a kid who's writing essentially randomly placed misspelled words?
Yeah.
Do you know the kid that well?
Not a whole lot. I mean, probably a long time ago.
Oh, okay. So let me just very quick, within a few minutes, I'm going to show you how to fix this so
Okay.
you can understand it. Make up a new name for the child. What's the name?
Uh, Mike.
What's Mike's speciality? What's his area of extreme interest and ability? If you don't really know, take a best guess.
I'm gonna say piano.
Piano. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you type out hero plus sign. What are we talking about? You have to type it out on a real keyboard. iPads, iPhones don't work. Not handwriting, typing. Okay.
Okay.
Then we're going to change hero to Mike. Mike plus sign. What are we talking about? We're going to replace what are we talking about with piano. Mike plus sign piano. See how we got there?
Yeah.
Now we have to replace the plus sign with a word to make this an appropriate three-word sentence. I'm going to ask you very specific questions that are extremely simple. 90% of special ed teachers get it wrong because they don't answer my questions exactly. Okay, it's very
Okay.
simple.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm going to be able to fool you?
Perhaps. I don't know.
Okay, so here's my question. We have to replace the plus sign with a word. Here's my question. Does Mike like or dislike the piano?
I would say he likes it.
Replace that word with a plus sign, and what is the three-word sentence? I said Mike plus sign piano. Does he like or dislike? You came up with a word. Replace that word with a plus sign. Does
I don't know,
Mike
man.
like or dislike the piano? What's the answer?
He likes it.
Okay.
Okay.
So that word, what's the word you just said? Does Mike like or dislike? What's the word?
Like.
Okay. Replace that with a plus sign. What's the three-word sentence?
Oh, Mike plus piano.
No, forget the plus sign. We're going to replace the plus sign with another word.
Okay.
Does Mike
Mike,
like or dislike?
he plays piano.
No. Does Mike like or
Oh,
dislike the piano?
like.
Okay. Replace that word with a plus sign. Mike, the
Plays.
word you just said. No, Mike, like or dislike.
Like.
Okay. Replace the plus sign with the word like. What's the sentence?
Replace the Mike likes the piano.
Okay, but that's not what I asked. I asked, does Mike like or dislike the piano? Why was I so hard on you with this? Because you automatically added the yes and replaced the plus sign. As a
Got it.
dyslexic, Mike can't do that.
Mm.
And
Oh,
to the I and to get he would say like because that's what I asked him. So he would be Mike like piano.
yeah.
He doesn't know how to add the S. And if we're using Orton Gillingham multi-sensory structured language, it would take you 2 years to learn this process at a cost of $11,000 through a non-for-profit.
Yeah.
You would learn how to see, touch, hear using all the sentences and it's all the senses, and it's really complicated.
Yeah. That makes sense, man. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Oh no, that's not a problem. But the reason why I'm so tough on people when I'm doing this is because almost every time, as an educated person, I ask like or dislike, you say like, and then you add the yes and you put it into the system
Hmm.
because you're educated. Mike can't do that.
Hmm.
So what I'm showing you now is how do we get Mike to add the S that doesn't require you to spend a couple of weeks trying to figure out, horribly long and complicated process to get him to do it. And remember that Orton Gillingham approach is what Bill Gates would use if his kid was dyslexic.
Hmm.
It's what the wealthy use. So here's the quick way around it. The number one assumption I have to say. I have to assume that Mike speaks proper English. That's the one assumption I have to give.
Yep.
I would ask Mike to read what he wrote out loud. Mike, like, piano. Mike, does that sound generally correct? No. Fix it. Mike likes the piano.
Got it. Yeah.
Do you see how, does it sound correct? Gets him to write things correctly.
Yeah, I see that.
That's that one. That is a form of word analysis. We ask because, and we go into a couple reasons. The reasons after because is articulation. It's the front part of the brain.
Got it.
Okay. So what? So why are the kids having trouble in school? Because dyslexics want to focus on their speciality. The school wants to make us well-rounded. So now, even with the most motivated dyslexic kid you ever met, your motivation is now down 50%. Most kids, 75, 80%.
Hmm.
Do they teach from the specific to the general? No, schools teach from the general to the specifics, like asking us to grab fog. And then they're certainly not doing word analysis followed by articulation, which is where we have 2.5 times the neural activity. They do the stuff back here where we got virtually nothing. And you wonder why we have trouble in school and they call us learning disabled.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the basics.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you're very good at like painting a picture of how things are. It's kind of like the storytelling is great and all that because that's how a lot of people learn. Like you're telling these amazing stories and how things come together for people. I think that's an intelligent way to actually articulate things. So I just want to applaud you on that.
Oh, no problem. Believe me, I've been working on this for 20 years.
Yeah,
Ever
yeah,
since ever since the senior professor said, 70th percentile in the GRE, we don't care. Oh, what about everybody else? It's like, I had to take 8 years off to tell you what I just told you. I presented in '06. I didn't present again in New York City until 2014.
dang, yeah. And you have an incredible story, man. So it sounded like you had a choice to make. Like, right, you can listen to these people that say you can't do this. This is going to be your life, or you can do something about it, which is what you've done. And that's incredible because a lot of times, like most people, when we're faced with a decision like that, we kind of listen to the crowd. And the people who make it to the other side are doing what you're doing, which is helping so many people do that. So thank you for doing that. It's incredible, man.
Yeah, well, it's just like anything else. They just ticked me off when they did that. I got extremely angry, and just so you know that's still there. I am the only person to flunk the internship when I was recommended an A minus in the
Yeah.
history of the program, and they got 150 plus kids going through that each year.
Yeah, I can relate that a lot in a sense, like because so many obstacles that I've overcome or people overcome in general, it's like you have to listen to your heart at the end of the day. You have to listen to what's possible for your own life. Be open to possibility and take the necessary actions and focus on progress every single day. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just now it's like when I speak to each individual, 'cause mainly what I do now is we teach parents to teach their own kids. All right. And every week we get together, and I love hearing this from parents. I don't know I'm not a teacher. I can't do this. I'm like, of course you can. Right. And we say, why is your kid not getting it? And like, the kid comes on and says,
Yeah.
well, I'm having trouble with this. I'm like, okay, here's the solution. If you want to know how my most successful case, I never saw this before. I will never see this again, not to this level. This was Casey's book. All 900 pages of 10th grade level material. This book won the Pulitzer.
That's a big book, man.
That's a big book. Casey was 10 when I started working with her. End of fifth grade, reading at the second grade level, fanatically interested in
Wow.
Theodore Roosevelt. I always do writing first because I have a little idea. If you can write it, you can read it.
Hmm.
You can write it, you can read it. He wanted to do the reading first. So I modified my process a little bit. I said, you're not doing this. You don't have the motivation. It's not happening. Okay, let's go back to the writing. She said, no, I want to do the reading. She sits in her room 2, 3+ hours a night, 6, 7 nights a week, almost all day during the summertime. And then in the fall, I get a call from her mother. She was in silent reading. Somebody came over and took her book, asked, what is this big book? They're reading Harry Potter and she's reading this monster. And she told them what was going on. None of them could get past the first paragraph. You
Wow.
could go literally to Casey and say, there, pick that word. What's the dictionary definition? And she would tell you. Took her 6 months. I have never seen anybody go through a book that fast. On her own, I saw her 15 minutes a week.
Wow.
So, for parents out there that are saying, I can't do this. I don't have a degree in this. Casey did this between age 10 and 11. She
Yeah.
can do that on her own. And her mom was like, uh, she was told, "Well, your daughter's by far the best reader in the class. I thought she had a reading problem. What happened?" And I said, what do you think she's been doing in her room hours a night? All right. For just 6 months. I finished working with Casey. We spent 3 years on that book. She was ready for college at the end of eighth grade. She's in college now. Last I communicated with her, she said, I'm busy. I'm applying for my first big girl job. I was like, okay, something to do with agricultural management. I was like, okay, well, you've been thoroughly prepared. She's doing great in school. Um, and I ran out of things to teach her when she was in eighth grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I said, most of the time it takes a lot more time than that. But she's just an example. When I said, "Well, it can't be done," I said, "Well, I think I'm pretty good at teaching this, but I only spent 15 minutes a week with the kid. She did all this on her own because she really wanted to overcome it." Now that's what happens when you take a super motivated kid and put them in their speciality. For the other kids, you put them in their speciality, they do the work. And then I had parents call up and say, we have to do the Lord of the Flies. My kid won't do it. And I said, yeah, because it's a horrible book and it's traumatizing the kid. And he doesn't want anything to do with it. So I would call up the school and say, we're going to do another book, something far more advanced than anybody else. But we'll do it in the kid's speciality. And if we have to fight you, well, We can, if we have to go to the school board, we have to go to the school board. Normally we can work it out, but generally, yeah. Or my kid won't do the following. I said, yeah, they don't like Lord of the Flies, but if you move them into something else, I'll have to sit down and say, yes, I've trained you. Now you have to go and do these other books. The only ones that I really get a lot of pushback from is Shakespeare. Because even after everything I've done, I still find it extraordinarily confusing.
Yeah,
But besides that, the kids will generally do their work. Grudgingly, you have to push them, but they'll do it once they're trained.
definitely. I mean, thanks for sharing that, man. It's because I'm sure like overcoming this and overcoming the obstacles, it's not easy. You know, it is a process, and it seems like you're a great teacher for that.
Well, this literally took me 20 years. So I want you to again understand what I did. I did the stupidest thing you could imagine. I wasn't reading or writing. I was doing it. I was writing like doing that at a first grade level, and I decided to go into law school. Okay.
Yeah.
What made me be this insanity? The people that ran the LSAT, the SAT test going to law school would not give me the accommodations I needed.
Hmm.
So I scored in the 0 percentile. On the GRE, my reading and my math, my verbal and math were a monkey with a dartboard throwing darts at a dartboard would do better. My analytical was 98th percent.
Yeah,
Okay, so one says I'm a genius, one says I'm a I'm stupid, and it's the same stuff. One's accommodated, one's not.
for sure.
Okay, so I'm just trying to let people know focus on your strengths. And here's the other thing that's coming up. I'm sure you've played with the artificial intelligence at some point.
Yeah.
Do you use it that often?
A little more frequently. Not so much in the past, but I'm getting into a little bit.
When the pro subscription came out for $200 a month last in December 2024, I bought it that day.
Wow.
Okay, it's been for dyslexics, it's fantastic. All right, when I show students how to do context problem solution in the craft of research, which again was designed as a book that came out in 1995 because the PhD students at the University of Chicago had trouble writing up their dissertations. And I dropped context to fourth grade. All right, as we walk students through that, once we get done with the solution, they don't need to learn how to become prompt engineers anymore. They know how to do it. To give you an example, last year I had a student who came out. He said, I don't like artificial intelligence. He tried to stay away from it. His boss loved it. And he calls me up. He says, I don't know what to do. I said, you've been trained in the craft of research. Go figure out the context. Talk to it, type with it, just figure it out. So he comes back. I did. Go do the problem. He does. He comes back. I hate this. I said, welcome to the adult world. So then he goes, and I said, oh, go do the context. I'm sorry, go do the solution. Writes up a 5 paragraph essay the way he was trained. His boss starts flipping through the things. I can't use this, can't use this, can't use this. Comes to his. We can use this. This is a good idea. Within a week, he was training other people on how to do prompt engineering. And he says, I don't know what I'm doing. I tried this with the context and I got it to work. This is what I did. And then the same thing for the problem and solution. And the people he's training at his new job, remember, he's just been here a couple of weeks now. They're just like, how did you learn all this? He's like, what do you mean? I don't know anything. I just started, I had to do this to get what the boss wanted. And I was told to do this, and this is what worked. And I didn't not telling you all the stuff that didn't. And he was so confused by it. When I talked to him later, I said, that's the advantage of being dyslexic. You've been solving problems like this since? And he said, yeah, third grade. I said, yes, but the new hires that got hired with you haven't. For them, getting a B minus on a test was the end of the world. He's like, yeah, if I got a B minus, I would have been thrilled. I was like, yeah, I got his GPA up to about a 3.0. So I'm like, this is the advantage of being dyslexic.
Definitely.
Who cares about what AI model you use or what they throw at you? He can now run it. And then now with these new agents, he can now direct it because he knows the craft of research.
Huh. That makes sense.
Yeah. So instead of instead of learning prompt engineering, I showed him how to prompt engineer his brain. And he said, "Wait, you showed this to me way before AI was ever even anywhere. Nobody even knew about it." I said, "Yes, because what they came out from the University of Chicago in 1995 is still relevant today. It's just
Definitely.
I mean, you talk to anybody who has a PhD, they're like, yeah, this is what I do. This is just the book that's the bestseller in that part of the field."
For sure, yeah.
Okay. And I just simplified it to make it work with with dyslexics. But that's how powerful this is.
Definitely. Out of curiosity, is there a cause for dyslexia or is it something you're born with?
It's something you're born with.
Okay.
Just as if you have, blonde hair or blue eyes, or if you're 6'6", or if you're 4'11", it's all genetics. It tends to run in families.
Got it. And you were talking about a lot of what people with dyslexia experience in terms of like the brain and all that. Do you notice a certain psychology within them that if they're if they're trying to look to kind of heal or I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of improve the situation, do you notice a psychology that can help benefit them to do that in a sense, or is there a limiting psychology that you also find that helps them stay stuck in that place?
Well, what you're going to find is depending what age you start dealing with this.
Hmm.
If you wait until high school, you're going to find that the kid is either drastically motivated. They'll just plow through anything to solve a problem, to solve the problem, or they become literally destroyed as a person. Okay,
Okay.
there's not a lot in the middle.
Gotcha.
How do you fix this? Start off by what I like to call an intervention period. All right. So again, why is this book by far the most popular one I ever teach? Because the kids will tell their parents, "Mom, Dad, I want to go to Disney World so I can learn to read." And you know how expensive it's gotten in the last bunch of years. And I'll tell them, well, if you can afford it, and that's a big if, I don't want you going into debt for this, but if you can afford it, yes, going into the Magic Kingdom, looking at Main Street USA, taking a trip, if you can afford it, to Marceline, Missouri, and making that connection, it does help quite a bit. The kids get super motivated because what I'll do with this book is I'll put them, I'll start them off in Marceline, Missouri when Walt was there. It's about 3,500 words. And I will keep them. They'll have them listen to the book while following along with their finger while trying to answer a specific question. What does Walt like? What does he dislike? What does he like to do? And every time they come across a word they don't know, I would have them circle it. Then they would go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary. No copying and pasting. They'd type out the word, pick their definition, and type it out
Makes
each
sense.
time. And the parents will say, "My kid won't do that." If it's in their speciality, they do it. Now, how many times do you have to type out a word in the definition until you know it permanently for you?
Uh, just a few times. I mean, it doesn't take too much.
Okay,
Just
okay. Dyslectic, it might be 10 or 20.
hmm,
And yes, I had kids, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds on that one section for 6 months
wow.
until they could read that section. Sometimes it was 3 months. Who cares? Because once they can read that 3,500 words, the next section gets a lot easier.
Yeah,
By the time they're done with chapters four or five chapters, whatever book you're looking at, they're generally reading at that grade level.
that makes sense.
Compare that to the Windward School for Dyslexics in the Upper East Side, one of the best schools in the world for dyslexics. Why do I point to them? Because when we had the Dyslexia Task Force, the second public comment period was at that school. And it's right there on their website. We are 98% effective of taking a dyslexic coming in from their public school or their private school. They're with us for a period of time, and then we send them back, and they are absolutely fine. We've addressed their concerns at the highest possible highest level anywhere in the world. Guess how long it takes to do that on average?
I have no idea, man. Tell me.
4 to 5 years
That's a
at
lot.
about
Yeah.
75,000 a year.
Wow.
but it works.
It works, man.
Or you can do this.
For sure. I mean, a lot of this, it seems like trusting the process, right? Not rushing it. Because, like you said, you can get the results. Man, it's like you just got to stick to it. Like, have the goal in mind, just keep going. Like, understand. Because another thing you brought up a lot is like the passion. And that just
Hmm.
makes sense to me. Like, because I feel like with anybody, like, a lot of people, like with the schooling system, for example, like, we're not interested because these things don't interest us. It's just real simple, right? But like actually discovering our passions and dedicating our energy to that, it just makes things so much easier.
Yes. And just to give you an example, what yes, these are upper middle class families. And yes, they saved for this. Okay. This is not available to anyone. I'm just giving you an example where they said, instead of us going broke, sending them to a top private dyslexic school, like the Gowl school that started it all, they're doing their 100th anniversary next year. With a $26,000 scholarship, it's still 60K a year.
Okay.
Okay. And you need to be there for years. So I had a family say, okay, we'll do that. So I told the kid, until you can read that section fluently, and I'm not the judge, your parents aren't the judge, your teacher is the judge, and another educator is the judge, who are selected by your parents or your teacher. Until they say you can read that section, again, about 3,500 words, this deal doesn't work. All right. But once you can, your parents are going to take you to Marceline, Missouri, so you can see the house that what we were reading about, and then they're going to take you to Disney World so you can go into Main Street USA and see this for real. And then they do the work. And I
Yeah.
had a student come back and say she was 10. She's like, I'm 6 months into this and I'm still having trouble. And I said, yes, because you're 10. This is designed for kids that are about, 7 years older than you are, 6 years older than you are. Took her 9 months to get past that section. Her parents went and did that. Then she came back and we finished up with a book with reading and writing within 3 years.
Wow.
Part time, her parents doing the work, working with her.
That's incredible, man. Like, it seems like a lot of this is trial and error in a sense, like, because parents, like, I'm sure they're kind of exhausted with certain things. Like, they've tried so many
Mhm.
things, and it can be difficult to stick with it, like being able to overcome things. But it seems like you have an excellent plan for a lot of these things.
Well, again, just look at the speciality. Give you a little hint. You're not dyslexic. Now, if you had to go back to school, imagine the nightmare, all right? Could you imagine when you were in high school, if you could focus just on what you were really good at, what you were really interested in? Think we could have gotten a lot more work out of you?
Absolutely.
Okay. And instead of asking, let's say you had a love for history, for example, instead of asking what caused World War II? Huh? What the heck? All right. Let's try something a little bit more realistic. What compelled President Roosevelt to make sure that we got into the part of the fighting war in Europe in 1942? And how, now you got something to latch on to that
Right.
explains North Africa.
Makes sense.
All right.
Yeah.
Which was one of the biggest screw ups. One of my, because I had a student who wanted to learn that. And one of the interesting things that I found is I'm not here I'm not here to try to offend anybody, but this was the absurdity of what was happening back then. You couldn't find any women's silk pantyhose anywhere on the Eastern Seaboard because the government requisitioned them to hand out to very conservative Muslim women.
Really.
And this is where it makes no sense. Very conservative Muslim women are fully dressed. You don't see their feet, let alone their legs. So what's the need for silk pant? I mean, you see
Right.
the cultural ridiculousness of this. All
Yeah.
right. And some of those little facts are what really kept the student very interested. Okay. And we went through a book, again, about the size for him to understand that. And at the end, he said, I can't believe this actually happened. And I said, yeah, well, there's two other books on this subject from the same author that'll bring you through World War II in Europe. And he just said, "This is fascinating. Why do the schools make it so boring?"
Oh man.
So yeah, so it was with the fact that the other thing he found was crazy. You have General Montgomery pushing Rommel west. I'm sorry, pushing them west. We landed and we're going to push east. Rommel, we were doing so badly. He zips through Kasserine Pass with, his tanks are not functioning. He's getting very little supplies. He's running out of gas. He knocks us around like crazy when we have supplies coming out of our ears, and then he runs back. Okay. And that's where we started to learn to fight.
Hmm.
One other fact he found interesting, he said before President Roosevelt started to get us going, um, the United States had a military that was lower ranked than Romania.
Wow.
Okay, and all these little facts. What? I'm just giving everybody an example. Every time he came across one of these crazy things, it kept him really interested to find out more and to use those crazy ideas to tell a story. So he wrote a paper about all this craziness, and it goes in, and the history teacher said, this is not true. It can't be. Here's your F. All right. Then I took it to the principal and I had the kid prepare a presentation. This is where I got it from. Da, 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 da. The professor had the teacher rewrite it, relook it up, ended up being an A minus.
Wow.
Okay. But it just gives you an example. You're feeding the passion of what they're really interested in.
That
And
just makes sense.
get them for that intervention period to where they're reading and writing at the grade level that you're looking for. I honestly try to get them years ahead of time. Why do I focus on such big books like this, 1,000 pages? Because if you can read this, I brought you to the top of the mountain. Now, there's still other things you're going to need to learn, but it's a lot easier walking down than trying to crawl up.
That makes sense. Something you kind of brought up is like the power of questions, right? And once we start
Mhm.
to ask better questions, we get better answers. And because if we just like ask these generic questions, like you said before, it's like doesn't really pique our interest so much. Doesn't really pique our curiosity, and we can't really work off of it. So being a skilled question asker, just in our general lives, I think that's a valuable skill.
Oh, and that's the very first thing of the craft of research: context.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
I literally, when we show body paragraphs, it's a quote, and we answer who, what, when, where, how, why. So every body paragraph my students write has a quote. And I have teachers that come to me, I can't assign essays for homework anymore. ChatGPT will write it. I said, okay, ask them where the quote is. No quote, no body paragraph. And then how did they find it? So I'll have a teacher who'll say that. I said, just let me talk to one of your dyslexic kids for a night. Parents' permission, mom's usually this is a mom thing. I talk to mom and I say, okay, here's how you do it. You teach the kid. Kid comes back with every paragraph has a quote, and the teacher says, "How did you find this quote?" He said, "Well, we had a hero. Hero wanted to do something. We ended up with a universal theme, an optimum villain. Then we had three good reasons. I turned each reason into a simple universal theme. Like, for example, the most popular one, young girls in Harry Potter. All right. Hermione loves Ron. That's a universal theme, love, that what we got from a reason. So we look through the books until we find a quote that deals with Hermione loving Ron. And for the more ambitious kids, they'll go through and find a bunch of quotes and pick the best one. And then the teacher goes, huh? Because if you have a quote, that's only what advanced writers typically do. If you have a quote and answer the basic who, what, when, where, how, why questions, that's not BS.
Right.
Because now you're using the AI as a writing assistant, but you've done the thinking.
That makes sense.
Okay. And that's just the context.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when it comes to our interest, it's like so easy to build off of that and just improve because that kind of, I mean, that's a cycle of life, really, just growth. And I think that's a natural thing for our brain. We just want to get better at things. So I'm glad you brought that up too.
Well, and here's what you have to tell your dyslexic kids for the intervention period to get you to read, this big book or something similar. We can focus on your specialty. But then you got to go back into the real world. And I can tell dyslexics what's going to happen. You're going to struggle through your first 2 years of college because you got to become well-rounded. You can do a little better your last 2 years. You go into grad school, you own the place day one. For example, with that, when I had to get my research approved by Professor James Collins, who wrote a book called Strategies for Struggling Writers, had $1.5 million grant from the U.S. government. I was told that was going to take years. Guess how long it took me to get his approval?
How long?
Less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
That's all I had. I entered a university-wide competition, and the next semester I got $15,000. And then the date I got from that $15,000 allowed me to get funding from the New York State government.
That makes
I mean,
sense.
to be more specific, the New York State Senate, who funded a multi-year study.
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if I didn't have that data, they would. The answer is no. So
Right.
I needed him to prove it, and I literally had just a couple of weeks.
That's good. You got
Okay,
that data,
that's
man.
yeah. Well, what we did is with the first one, I got his approval, and her name was Michaela. So we give her the GRE. She scores in the 0th percentile. Spelling and grammar are a disaster. Post test, she scored in the 50th percentile. Spelling and grammar clean at the graduate level. That got the school's attention. The next kid, his name was Adam. He failed the New York State reading and writing exam in high school with a 47 and a 52. But the teacher said the kid's a genius, which he was. He scored in the 6th percentile on the pretest because remember, this is the analytical writing assessment. His analytical scores were off the charts. His writing was horrendous. The SUNY professor who reviewed it said he should be banned from college. Halfway through, he retook the test, got a 72. When he finished, he hit the 70th percentile. Went on to college, English 101, 102, B's. No accommodations.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
school didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, man. These stories
So,
are very inspiring.
well, again, I cheated. This kid was massively, he was a certified genius according to his teachers, extraordinarily motivated.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have any strategies for parents who are perhaps like overwhelmed and like to help themselves help their kid, right? Because we can get caught up in things, and the stress can get to us and kind of interfere with our ability to help someone. Do you have any strategies on that?
Yeah, so I'm just going to assume that we're talking about parents who really want to know the research. First thing I would do, get a copy of this,
Okay.
okay? And I would only go through the science, which he wants to do through the reading, not a good idea. All right. Next thing is for those who really want the advice on the basic science in writing. This is Dr. Collins's book. All right, it's not that long. It came out in '97. This one came out in 2003. See how ridiculous my field is. Okay, Dr. Collins's book is almost 30 years old. All right, so that'll give you a base to understand it.
Got it.
The other thing is to do, if you go to my website, dyslexiaclasses.com, again, it's plural, dyslexiaclasses.com, fill out the contact me form. And I can get right back to you and set up a call. And what I do is I ask your child a couple of questions to see if they're dyslexic, and if they are dyslexic, how severe it is. It's 2 questions. All right, save you about $5,000 in a neuropsych exam. Then I find out what their speciality is. And then I ask them the hardest question. Is this how you would like to overcome your reading and writing problems? And I have to get a yes. If they don't say yes, I'm not your person. Mostly they say yes. And we sit down with the parents. We say, okay, here's what we do. We meet on a weekly, we give you access to a year. We meet every week, not once a month or twice a month, every week on a webinar. And we walk you through the process and what trouble you're having. All right. It's a very simple process. I keep it extraordinarily simple. It's taken me 20 years to get it this simple. And then we just walk you through it. Okay. Stuff there's online to read. You apply it, and then you're going to find for some reason your kid's not getting this as effectively as they should. You ask us every week. It's not going to be anything I haven't heard before. and we just show you what it is, and you just practice it. You know, parents do 2, 3 sessions a week. Sometimes it's none, sometimes it's a lot more. Remember, we give you access for a year, and at the end of the year, you're going to see a substantial improvement. And what our goal is to bring your child years ahead for the reading and writing skills, so they can go to the top of the mountain and then walk down.
Awesome. That makes sense. Uh, Along with that, how do we start to develop confidence within ourselves and within our kids along the journey?
It's very simple. Just go ahead and start out, find out what the kid's speciality is. Focus on that. Then focus on teaching them from the specific to the general, and then do word analysis followed by articulation. And it's that simple. Now,
Makes
here's
sense.
what's going to surprise you is the amount of repetition you have to go through. It will shock parents. It shocks professors. It really shocks teachers. They're like, I showed this kid how to do this 3 times. And I said, well, that's nice. I sometimes have to do it 30 to 50 times. And they're like, huh? How am I going to get through all the grammar rules? I said, you're not. What I do is you go to Amazon and find the 20 or 30 most common grammatical mistakes made by college students and spend forever on each one. By the time you get done with that list of 20 or 30, what I found is generally these kids are getting like a B in English class. All right. Now, if you're getting a 3.0 with a tough professor at a major state university, like big state U from any state, I mean, that's about the best you're likely going to get without a lot more outside work. And that's done with 20 or 30 of the most common grammatical mistakes. And by the way, a lot of stuff now, when you get out in the real world, you are not going. Here's just one thing I learned from CNBC. I can't believe this number. First of all, I heard it was 300 billion. Now they told me it's $400 billion that these mega companies are putting into AI this year.
Wow.
$400 billion. A lot of that's data centers. Do you think that they're spending that amount of money to allow you to write the way that you normally write, or to write a proposal that's like 1 page and try to tweak it the right way, even if you're a gifted writer? Or are they going to insist that the AI draft it for you and then you tweak it from there?
I'll probably say the latter.
Yeah, they're not going to allow you. Like right now, this is the summer of 2025. They're just opening up ChatGPT 5 today. But here's what I found using O3 Pro all the time. So I'm writing my first book. It's really good to get your first draft out. It's really good for that. I did mine in 5 to 6 hours of compute time. Then I hired my ghostwriter. All right. But instead of her interviewing me, asking what am I looking for, I said, well, here's a draft. Tell me what needs to get changed. And yes, she's completely rewriting it, but it's a lot easier starting off with a good draft.
For sure.
That's what it's there for.
Yeah. I mean, to help what builds confidence, like personally speaking, it's just like, of course, living in your passion, but doing what you're saying to do every single day, right? Actually, becoming the greatest version of you, right? It's basically taking progressive action every single day and finding out who you are, your beliefs, your values, all these things. They come into this intertwined thing that makes your life worth living and fulfilling. That's what I find personally.
Yes, and that's one of the advantages of being dyslexic. You know what your speciality is. Like, let me give you an example. Do you ever watch a movie called Fast and Furious, the original one?
I'm one of the few who haven't.
Okay, there's a scene there that really encapsulates this. Paul Walker brings up a car from the junkyard, and they have to turn it into a super racer. All right, and there's this whiz kid who's ADD, and Paul Walker is designing it. He says, "Why are you not at MIT?" And the ADD kid says, "I can do this really good. I can't do the other stuff."
Hmm.
Okay, he's talking about his speciality. So what I try to tell parents is, we got to get your kids' reading and writing skills up. I try to get them above grade level if I can, so they can grow into it. And then, yes, you do have to They do have to do their work. They do have to do Shakespeare. They do have to do books they don't want to read and write about. Once they're trained, you just press them to, make sure they do their work. Once they're in college and they do their last 2 years, they get better. But I try to tell them, understand if you're doing a 4-year college, you're going to go in and do a master's degree. That's the optimum for most people. All right. If your kid is not, I find this very offensive, but I think it strikes home the point. When people say, well, you're not college material. No, these are kids that are brilliant at mechanics. I call it head and hands jobs. These are not our grandfather's manufacturing jobs. Instead of 5,000 people, there's 200 and machines doing most of the work, and you have to work with the machines. They actually have, we started doing this in New York, like 15 years ago. They have something called an advanced manufacturing associate's degree. Pays very well. Or auto mechanics or electricians. Like I am just absolutely, completely incompetent at any of this stuff. Like completely incompetent. But a lot of my kids were exceptionally good at this. So for the context problem solution from the craft of research, I bring them through context and problem, and that gives them the body paragraph ability to go and get through English 101 and 102 in college. How to write 5 paragraph essays. And then they go and they become extraordinarily gifted mechanics. But then when there's a problem that they have to write up, now they can do it because they know how to do a 5 paragraph essay.
Absolutely. I mean, anything is learnable, man. You just got to put your mind to it and stick to the plan.
Well, try to teach me how to change a spark plug, and we'll be here until 2053. I mean, I'm horrible at it. Okay. Focus on your speciality and let it carry you to where you're going to go.
100%. All
I
right, man.
run into parents like that sometimes. Like I had one parent. Um, Dad was a PhD. Mom was a lawyer. Their older brothers and sisters were one was going to become a doc. They're doing doctoral level stuff. This kid, I'm just going to call him Jim to protect his identity. He was a very gifted electrician. That's what he liked doing. So he goes, I said, okay, Jim, you're going to not do the normal thing. You're not going to join the union at 18 and then end up with your everything at age 23, 5 years, because he would have to go to school 2 nights a week for 5 years after he worked all day. I said, you're going to go to the community college and you're going to do your schooling first, then you're going to join the union. So he does that. Then he goes his first year as an apprentice. Oh, we just got done with a long day. Now we got to go to school for 3 hours or whatever it is. Jim said, "Oh, I'm going home." No, you got to go to school. He said, "No, I already did that. I did that before I came in." And he became an exceedingly gifted electrician. And as a union member, he was actually making more money than one of his siblings who had a doctorate degree.
Wow. That's awesome,
Yeah,
man.
you know how hard it is to find a good. Or I had another student who um, became a plumber, and I said, what's the most you ever charged a client?" He said it was a filthy rich client, and their pipes burst because they didn't do preventive maintenance on Christmas Day, and their basement was a swimming pool, and I had to grab 5 guys to get over there to take care of it that day, and we all had to miss Christmas with our families. I'm like, "What did you do?" He said, "I charged him like 5 times." And the guy never batted an eye at the bill.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. So I mean, just to give you an example of what a and he got it done much quicker than most people would because he's exceptionally skilled in that area. But just to give you an example of you don't have to go to a 4-year college, even because of AI. Just so you understand, just earlier this year, the CEO of Anthropic said that in 5 years he expects up to half of the entry level jobs for college graduates to be gone.
wow.
Okay. So either you're going to know how to use the artificial intelligence and guide it, use it and guide it. You're going to be on one side of the fence and you're going to make so much more money, be so much more productive. Or if you're on the other side, not good.
Right.
And the students that I've worked with that I've took through context, problem, solution from the craft of research, as I said, we showed you how to prompt engineer your brain. You don't need to worry about this. You will be fine. And in general, when I get back, that's what I get. That's what I hear from them. They're doing just fine.
100%, man. Russell, this has been awesome. I appreciate you so much for sharing your story and all your insights. We talked about so many different avenues and incredible success stories that you've had, like what people are experiencing and how we can actually overcome and that persistence mindset. Because, of course, like this is not an easy process. Just like anything that's worthwhile in life, it's not easy. Like it's going to be challenges, but it's how we overcome them and how we persist. And it's ultimately about who become in the process, at least to fulfilling life. So, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your insights with us. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was a great chat.
Awesome. If people want to get connected with you and all of your work, where can they go for that?
Best thing to do is just go to Dyslexia Classes, plural, dyslexiaclasses.com, and just there's a contact me form there. Just fill it out and I'll get right back to you.
Awesome, man. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks for having me.